Ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon, good morning to you. Welcome back to another video. We're going to be going through Konrad Vollen today, the Empire Soldier, and his late game builds. Going to be going through gear, going to be going through skills and god skills, discussing why I've chosen what I've chosen and why I think this is currently going to be the only meta. There will be some room for personalisation, that's the good news, and there is room for a little bit of flexibility with this build, but currently the Skaven Killer armour set seems to be the only viable choice. And we'll rule out the other two armour sets by simply showing you how bad they are. Solan's Fate, unfortunately, only increases taunt, and it does make it slightly better, but it's just not giving you a notable damage boost, it's not giving you a notable survivability boost compared to the other armour sets. So straight away, Solans, get out of here, you're absolutely rubbish. Meteoric Iron Sabatons. Beautiful. Unfortunately, terrible. So Justice for the Empire skill is improved, and this is basically a ground slam in front of you that generates energy. Okay, so that's cool, so it generates energy, awesome, you've got energy, great, but it does comparable damage to the Pistolier skill from the Skaven set, only the Pistolier skill has AP for a start, and it doesn't have a 5-second cooldown, so it can be spammed. This is high damage. This is like a little bit of damage every now and again. It's just incomparable. The 30% AP that will come from this Pistolier skill, combined with the fact that you get some energy regained. Okay, this ability's downside is that it does consume energy to use, but we will mitigate that by being awesome. I'll show you how we do that in a little bit, but generally speaking, Pistolier is just so much higher in damage and sustained damage as well. Mainly, again, thanks to the AP. So, other bonus of the Skaven set, which I really don't think is necessary comparing it to the other set, is that the Banner of the Empire becomes heroic too, giving you another 30% damage, or it might be 20, and a ridiculous amount more counterattack damage. Not that we're going to be using that for this build, but it's just generally awesome, better, and good all round. So, there is no reason whatsoever to pick anything other than the Skaven Killer set right now, at least that I can see. So, let's talk about the rest of the items and why we've picked them. Straight over to the Grudge Setter, or Settler. This item, in my view, is the only logical choice, especially if you're playing as a group. All damage to taunted enemies is increased. This is all damage from you and your team. This improves damage all the way around the table, and it is amazing. Whole party doing 200% more damage. I don't know if that's intentional, but it's certainly the current state of it. It's amazing. So, therefore, we have to have Taunt on our toolbar. We'll come back to that in a mo. You could go for something like Blade of Vengeance. Now, the reason I haven't gone for this, Blade of Vengeance is nice if you're going for the tanky build, and you're going to be running around doing lots of relic runs, taking lots of hits. The reason I'm not using this is I want to play the max difficulty where I have a feeling I'll be dying in 1 or 2 hits. So I don't think I'm going to be able to take enough hits to successfully block enough hits to gain charges to do lots more damage. This can get up to 100 charges, meaning you do a whopping amount more damage. It's absolutely amazing if you get that, but you have to be stood in the middle of a huge crowd taking loads of hits, and for me, that's also not viable for boss runs. So for me, this item, although it's a cool idea, is kind of useless for what I want it to do. It's there for trash farming, it's there if you can taunt and get a whole, mob of enemies to attack you, but for me, I think max difficulty once Chaos 7's out, you're probably going to die before you get much value off of this, and again, it doesn't apply to the whole team. Same goes for Magnus's Gift. It's cool, it makes you deal more damage based on how many enemies have got this debuffed, so that's cool, but it doesn't apply to the whole team because it's just improving your damage. And as well as that, there have to be multiple enemies, so when it comes to killing bosses, or when there's the occasional mob left on its own, it's going to take a lot longer to kill it. There's nothing worse than having one large mob left on its own, being able to only get plus 50% damage. It's going to take you 4 times longer to kill that mob compared with the glorious Grudge Settler, Runefang of Solland. Unfortunately, it's actually good compared to the rest of Solland's stuff, which is Garbo. Now, Meteoric Iron Shield. This is what I'm rocking right now simply because it has some defensive utility. The physical damage 200 to nearby enemies is utterly terrible. It might be good if you went through this and, I don't know, you equipped it on a fresh character on the easy difficulty, maybe it would do some damage, but it really is just, you don't even think about it. The one thing it might do, which is kind of cool, is it can tick and do some damage to things that will die quickly, like some of the mechanics within boss fights that take 3 hits to kill, no matter how much damage you do. So it does also have a bit of utility there. The main thing it gives you is a slow aura around your character, and this is a lifesaver. It's a real lifesaver. Things run right the way up to you, and just in that last few meters, they have a sort of a 50% move speed or something around that mark. And it just allows you to walk away from enemies quite easily and prevents them sort of ganging up on you, grouping around you, etc. It's really, really nice. I was lucky enough to find one with a semi-decent damage roll, so crit damage, cost reductions, kind of nice too. It's all very well and good. You do have the option of using something like Anger over here, so this will give your shield smash ability more damage, give you a little spike of damage every now and again. It's kind of alright to use. As you can see, 200,000 is a pretty good hit, but every 8 seconds it can be used. I'm just going to be shooting stuff with my pistol anyway, so it doesn't do quite as much damage as the shield bash will, but in all honesty, I don't feel it really justifies it in comparison to the survivability you get from Meteoric, although this is certainly an option. We also have Shield of Revenge, which does give you more counterattack damage, but nothing offensive in my build uses counterattack, so unless I'm planning on taking loads of hits, it's really not going to do anything. Now over to the rings and necks. Now we got typical damage bonus here for the Pure Soul. You could go for cooldown reduction on this when you use your potion. That can be of some use if you don't have enough cooldown in your build. I currently do, so I don't need it, so damage for me is fine. Now the two items here, and I will change one of these once I get the opportunity, are extra health and energy gain based on critical hit, and it has a chance to grant health and energy. When you basically spam enough hits, this will help you sustain your energy levels. I don't know if the two stack together. I currently believe they do, but I haven't tested it fully yet, but I will probably exchange one of these for a ring that will give me a extra 30% damage bonus, but I just don't have one right now that I'm really comfortable using. This one here doesn't have a critical hit on it, so I don't really want to sacrifice 6% of my critical hit chance, because critical hits are awesome. Now, moving on, I think that's everything for gear, so we can go ahead and look at skills. Now, the skills for me are quite obvious choices. The left click is actually the only one I very rarely use, and I will likely change in the near future. The reason being is I never run out of energy, so I don't really need an energy builder. Although it's kind of cool to be able to build up your block chance a little bit, I will be tempted to exchange this for something like a shield charge, so I can simply get out of harm's way a little bit quicker. I think that will be my plan. We also have Taunt. I've currently got Mastered because it will give me a damage bonus for every enemy taunted, so if a boss calls down 5 enemies, I taunt them all, they take 200% more damage, and I get an extra little damage spike from the taunt as well. So that's pretty cool. Pistol is your main builder. That could really be your left click in all honesty. That is going to be doing all of your damage. You get a little energy gain or energy reimbursement when you kill an enemy, which is nice. And remember, when we do crits as well, we also have a chance to regain energy. That really helps. We have Banner of the Heroic Empire, and that is of the Empire Heroic, rather. That is just mandatory. It's absolutely amazing. It's free to equip because of the armor. It's awesome. It's fantastic. You should always have it. It's just perfect. It's got so many things on it. Damage taken reduction, energy cost, cooldown, damage. It's got counterattack. Doesn't really do much for me, but hey, it's awesome. Sigmar's Blessing Mastered. Next one now. A little bit of an unsung hero. That's right, I've gone for Mastered. 30% damage, 20% block, 4 energy regen, and a nice cooldown of 14 seconds. Oh, sorry, a duration of 14 seconds. Most that will go for this will probably have the second rank, but for me, I like this one, and we'll talk a little bit in a moment about the god skills as to why I've gone for this as opposed to the other options, but this for me, really, really handy. I can keep it up all the time, and it's just beautiful. Finally, we have Sigmar's Wrath Superior. Now, this could be exchanged for another ability, but I went for rank 2 here, because it has 30% damage bonus to anyone standing within my aura. What you'll notice about this build is I do 200 bonus damage, or enemies will take 200 bonus damage because of my sword. They will take, or my allies will deal, another 50% damage if they're standing in my banner. They will deal another 30% damage if they're standing near me. So basically, whoever I stand near and put a banner down will be dealing a whopping amount more damage. This really makes a huge difference once you've plastered all these buffs on. It's basically 4, 3, 2, taunt, off you go. It's a lot of buffs, but it really makes a difference. Now, in terms of what we've got up here, there's not really a lot of passive choices for this character if you're not going for some sort of heavy block build. Now, I think Bastion is one that could probably be exchanged for what I'm currently rocking, because it will give you, just if you're shooting anything, a basic 2% damage. Although, if you're clearing trash, I would say this is probably the better choice than something like something like Tireless. So energy generators are increased. So I generate more energy, basically. And I've also got the whole party get more energy. Finally, I've got block chances increased and all damage is increased based on block. So half of your block chance turns into damage. That's pretty cool, 24% extra damage. I mean, why wouldn't you take that? I do think, in all honesty, I would probably recommend swapping one of these out for one of these. It would probably make a little bit more sense. You could also go for potion cooldown. That would be reasonable if you wanted that potion up more often. Other than that, you've got lots of counterattack things. The banner lasting longer really isn't that useful, but the 10% damage may even be a superior choice compared to the energy generators. Really, I would say that might be worth thinking about. Counterattack damage, again, not going to do much. Counterattack damage, not going to do much. So really, I think your choices are the 2 energy generators we've got here just to try and keep energy up. But I think it's also completely fine to go for Bastion. If you're going to go for relic runs, I think that's probably the superior choice to what I'm currently rocking, which is for boss runs. And you could probably switch over something like this for one of these as well, just to get that extra 10% increase. Because we do also have the fact that we have 50% energy gain for the whole party, which I think is just a nice buff to have. We've also got some points left over, which is nice. So over to the God skill tree. God skill tree is a little bit of a interesting one to debate right now, because I think either way for me, I would definitely go for Sigmar's Wrath Superior, and I would chase all the way down to share rations. I don't think it's strictly necessary, and you don't need to do it, but every single one of these along here is giving you cost reduction, critical hit, critical damage, and extra damage too. So all of these points are really well spent, in my view. Get a little bit of cooldown reduction too. I just think it's really, really good tree to go down, and I really like Sigmar's Wrath Superior. You don't have to go for this, there's lots of other options. And the other direction I've gone for here, and many will go for a different direction, we'll talk about those in a sec, is Sigmar's Blessing Mastered. Reason being is the duration goes up from 10 seconds to 14, meaning that I don't have to worry about it so often, and it also means I have 100% uptime for it. Although the cooldown's 25, by the time you put a banner down and you've got some allies around, it will be up all the time. The energy regen also goes up from 3 to 4, comparing it at least to the rank 2, and you get another 10% damage done. The only downside of this is that all of these points down here are technically wasted in the higher difficulties, because you're getting like an extra 8% health, something like that. And let's be honest, if you're on a really high difficulty, you're probably just going to die anyway. The alternative to this, and this is probably a pretty good alternative, is to move on up here and along the block tree. So moving along here, you will get access to considerably more block. In total, probably looking about 30% more, give or take, if you manage to get all of these. So a little bit less armor, more block, bit more block, bit less block damage, but extra block and block resist down here is all very well and good. That may work fairly well because it may synergize quite nicely with your block chance increase. And remember, for every 2% of block, you get 1% bonus damage. So it might be the preferable tree. And as well as that, you get Sigmar's Blessing Superior, which is only 10 seconds and only 3 energy regen and only 20% damage, but it is still there and it is still good. More importantly, you do get Divine Judgment Mastered. So this basically means nearby enemies deal less damage and take more damage. That is a very, very good skill, and it really, really adds to the tankiness. The only reason I've not gone for this right now is I'm working on the assumption that in the higher levels of Chaos 7+, is that I'm not going to be surviving long enough to make block pay off for me. Although the offensive capability of this area might actually be greater. So really, the only toss-up really is, do I want to get some extra block and get Sigmar's Blessing Superior, or do I just want to go straight for Sigmar's Blessing Mastered and have 100% uptime? Like, if you've got enough cooldown, and maybe if you went for a cooldown potion, you could go for Sigmar's Blessing Superior. So I think for most players, I would suggest going down this tree, and you could probably invest absolutely everything down these branches of getting more block chance, because I think it's more likely to total up to being a higher sort of net. However, I do like moving all the way down the right here, because I pick up a huge amount of extra critical damage, plus 70%, which I think is awesome. And as well as that, we've got lots of extra sort of damage against champions, things like that. I like the fact we got Sigmar's Wrath Superior, which is 30% damage to our allies, which is really, really good. I would say move along here just to pick up this at the very least. pass on all these points, pass on going any further, pass on all of this, and maybe explore the block tree if it turns out that being tanky in the higher levels is actually worth doing. Guys and girls, I hope that's been useful. The last thing to comment on is I'm obviously prioritising damage and crit for this build. You could probably prioritise other things if you want to go for a lower DPS survival-based build. But for me, that is everything you need to know about the Skaven Killer set and your options, especially regarding the God Tree. Let me know down in the comments what you think is going to work and what you're currently rocking right now. Any variants of this I'd like to hear. Have yourself a great day. See you next time.